Hello, my name is Lilliana Salerno, and I'm a freshman showing through the Riverview FFA chapter. This will be my first year showing livestock at the Florida State Fair. Today, I will be talking to you about the modern breeding practices within the sheep industry. Today, the first thing I will be talking about is estrus manipulation. However, before we talk about that, we need to know what estrus is. Estrus is the heat cycle that mature ewes undergo. It happens every month from 14 to 19 days, averaging about 17. The estrus phase consists of 4 parts. The first part is proestrus, followed by estrus, metestrus, and diestrus. For most sheep, their breeding season begins at the fall time, when the days get shorter and the days get colder. Exceptions to these include Dorsets, Merinos, Rambouillets, and a majority of hair breeds, who cycle year-round. Within their 4 to 5 day estrus cycle, sheep are only fertile for 24 to 48 hours. Now that we know what estrus is, let's talk about estrus manipulation. Estrus manipulation is the altering in a ewe's estrus cycle. It can be done either to have the ewe fall into estrus out of season or to control what days they go into heat. Typically, estrus manipulation is a tool used to successfully breed your ewes using artificial insemination. Synchronization is another word that can be used for altering your ewes' estrus cycles. Now that we know what it is, let's talk about the most common forms. The first form of estrus manipulation we will be talking about is prostaglandin. Prostaglandin is a naturally occurring hormone within the ewe that causes the corpus luteum to die. The corpus luteum forms when, after ovulation, the follicle housing the egg collapses on itself. After the corpus luteum dies, the ewe will begin its estrus cycle within the next 24 to 48 hours. The corpus luteum, while being a natural hormone, can be given with 2 shots 9 days apart. The next form of estrus manipulation we will be discussing is how to get your ewes to cycle out of season. Cycling out of season for small breeders is typically done by maintaining the light source within their environment. Small breeders are capable of doing this because they can keep it in a controlled, small environment. By controlling the lights during the day, the farmer is able to alter the ewe's mind into thinking the days are getting shorter, starting their estrus cycle. For larger breeders, it is easier for them to use the ram effect. A ram can go out with a lot of ewes at one time and can trick them into entering estrus out of season by simply being around them. In the photo, you can see farmers using the light effect. They're in a controlled environment with dimmed windows and lights. When they want their ewes to enter the estrus cycle, they will start to begin to dim the lights earlier within the days. Now that our ewes are in heat, it's time to move on to the next step: artificial insemination. Artificial insemination is the process of depositing semen into the female reproductive tract. There are 4 types of artificial insemination, which we will discuss later, utilizing the 3 different types of semen: fresh, frozen, and chilled. On the chart here, we can see the 4 forms of artificial insemination: vaginal, laparoscopic, cervical, and transcervical. We can see that as we move down the list, each gets more invasive and has a more intensive recovery process. Vaginal has the highest possible success rate, while transcervical has the highest set rate. Now, let's get a little bit more in depth with each type. First up, we have vaginal AI. Vaginal AI is the simplest, least invasive form of AI. It involves depositing semen directly into the vaginal canal with no concern of how close it is to the cervix. While it is the easiest, it is not the cheapest, as purchasing and storing fresh semen is not easy. Here we see the tool that is used for the vaginal AI. Semen is placed into the main canister and exits through the tip of the tube on the right. It is not invasive and does not involve discomfort for the use. The tip is placed here, not determined by where the cervix is, and deposited directly here. Since it is fresh semen, the semen is able to make its way up the uterus. Let's talk about the next form of AI. Laparoscopic AI is the least invasive of the 3 procedures. Externally, 2 shots are placed into each of the uterine horns. In this procedure, sheep are strapped still upside down. When the procedure is over and they are taken down from the table, when cared for properly, they will be back to their regular selves within the next 30 minutes. As shown in the photo, air is pumped into the abdomen to make the reproductive tract closer to the surface. After the reproductive tract is brought up, a shot is administered into both of the uterine horns. Now, let's move on to the two invasive procedures. Cervical AI is the process of taking frozen semen and pushing it into the first fold of the cervix. It is much more invasive and uncomfortable for the U, but it has higher success rates when using frozen semen than vaginal AI. Here, we can see that the tube would be inserted along the vaginal canal and implanted right above the cervix. Here's an example of what the tool might look like. The tool will have a camera on the tip so that the veterinarian can see what they are placing the semen into. There is a tube within it for the semen to be deposited. Now, let's look at the last of the 4 forms of AI. Transcervical AI is much more invasive and uncomfortable for the U than the other forms. Transcervical AI involves pulling the cervix down into the vaginal canal and implanting the semen directly into the uterus. Typically, the recovery process for this form of AI is long and extensive. Embryo transplants are a rare situation to come by. They involve, after impregnating U, taking her embryos out. The embryos are then frozen and stored until they will be placed into a carrier U. The carrier U does not have to be the same age, breed, or have any of the same traits as the mother. All that matters is that the carrier U has a big enough frame to safely birth the lamb. Cheviots, for example, make good mothers. They have big frames to safely birth any possible other breed, and they have good motherly instincts. That sums up my oral presentation on the modern breeding practices within the sheep industry. Today, we covered estrus manipulation through the RAM effect, the light effect, and prostaglandin. We also covered vaginal AI, cervical AI, laparoscopic AI, and transcervical AI. Lastly, we covered embryo transport. Thank you for watching. I look forward to the state fair.